Welcome back to the 2021 Justin and Tyler Movie Awards, beginning the first of 3 videos that comprise the people portion of the 2021 awards. This is, of course, our video for our best actors of 2021. And the way that we do this is we each have 3 honorable mentions, and then we each have a number 3, a number 2, and a number 1 best actors of 2021. These can be single performances, they can be on body of work. We give ourselves a rather long leash for these things, but this video will be for best actors of the year. So we're each going to start off giving our 3 honorable mentions, and you'll have to forgive me if I have to refer to my notes a time or two here, because we give each of our 3, and then we do individually down from 3, 2, and 1 for actual award winners. So for best actors of 2021, my honorable mentions this year go to Tom Hanks in News of the World, Benedict Cumberbatch both in The Courier and of course in Spider-Man No Way Home, reprising his role as Doctor Strange, and Lakeith Stanfield in Judas and the Black Messiah. So Tom Hanks in News of the World plays a post-Civil War newsman who's basically travels around to towns and for, very small amounts of money, just travels around with the news. And just basically, for a lot of people that can't read newspapers, he just basically talks about what's going on in the rest of the country. And he meets up with this girl who was abandoned at a very young age and grew up with, I can't remember the name of the tribe, the specific tribe. But anyway, he's basically entrusted with getting her to her family in the white American world. And he's just so crazy, thoroughly believable in almost everything. I think maybe everything I've ever seen him in. He's so damn believable and slips into these character roles and everything so seamlessly. It's the definition, the difference in definition for me between actor and movie star. And this has been talked about plenty, but there are actors who can basically play anything, and there's movie stars who basically play themselves in anything. And Tom Hanks is very much that first one, can basically slip into any role that I think I've ever seen him in, and does so flawlessly. Does it again here in News of the World. Not a movie that I loved, but a movie that I thought his performance was excellent. Benedict Cumberbatch, obviously 2 very disparate characters, and with him it's the exact same thing. Difference between what I feel is like a true actor and a movie star. Benedict Cumberbatch doesn't just play himself and call himself Doctor Strange. He's playing that character of Doctor Strange, which I think is very, very different from his actual personality. And then in The Courier, he is a British informant to Russia during the Cold War, I believe was the premise of that one. So he's traveling back and forth to Russia, basically getting intel on the Russians, on the Soviets, for Great Britain. And once again, just 2 very disparate performances. Obviously 2 incredibly different characters, and every time I see Benedict Cumberbatch in something, even if the movie doesn't wind up being incredible, sort of the same thing. I didn't think The Courier was a tremendous movie, but I see him kind of on the marquee, and I'm like, okay. And he delivered in both of his significant performances this year. Lakeith Stanfield, obviously him and Daniel Kaluuya are the driving performance aspect of Judas and the Black Messiah. He plays the name of his character, William O'Neill, who was an FBI informant, and again, his performance in combination with Daniel Kaluuya just drives that whole movie, and it was a pretty darn well received movie this year. So he winds up getting an honorable mention for me.
So you gave away something
okay
about Benedict Cumberbatch. He was also in The Power of the Dog. So you must not have seen it.
Oh my God, okay.
I'm guessing. Or maybe you just forgot he was in it. Anyway, he was in that. Turns out, I didn't see The Courier though. But it turned out he had a good year that I didn't consider.
Yeah, fair enough.
So.
Well, it's like you see him in, because he does a lot of smaller stuff too. So there's a lot of stuff that he does in the run of a year that you just miss.
Yeah.
So yeah.
My honorable mentions are Kevin Hart in Fatherhood.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Daniel Kaluuya in Judas and the Black Messiah, and Lakeith Stanfield in Judas and the Black Messiah.
Fair enough.
So Kevin Hart, he is it the best performance of the year? No, obviously not, because I'm my number one. But he played against type. You know, he's a comedian, but he put in a good dramatic role. That means something to me when you see them flip and be able to do that, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe he's done that before in previous movies, but not as much as this.
Yeah.
Now, with the Judas and the Black Messiah duo, Daniel was built more on charisma and power and influence, and so in that, he was bigger than life, and he played that really perfectly. I thought Keith did more of the heavy lifting. He had to be more emotional, a more complete performance, but he didn't have the bombastic leader thing, because it didn't fit his character. They were playing different characters. But I liked both performances a lot, and I had said to you early on in the year that it would be a hard call to pick one or the other, but it turns out I didn't have to. I just put them both honorable mention, because their performances were so good that they hung on that long. And I was just like, I ain't cutting either of them, because they complement each other so well.
Yeah, it is very difficult to separate those two performances. So difficult, in fact, that the Academy refused to do it and just nominated them both for supporting actor. And everybody was like, well, if they're both supporting actors, who is this movie about?
It's a hard call.
It's tough. It's not easy.
I don't know. I think Lakeith is the main character, but then is he?
Yeah, it's...
Is he or is he not?
It's very, very difficult. So, not too difficult for me, because my number 3 best actor of 2021 is Daniel Kaluuya in Judas and the Black Messiah.
I considered when I was reading mine switching the way I read it, because I thought that he might be...
Oh, okay.
Not switching so there was consensus, but I wanted to lead right into yours with my last one being him.
Well, you pretty much did, because really, what you said specifically about Kaluuya, and that's what struck me, just that little bit more so, because obviously they're two, like you said, very different performances of very different characters. Lakeith Stanfield obviously is in a no-win situation the entire movie, and he plays it as such. There is not a situation here that's going to end well for me. Yeah. I'm either ratting out Fred Hampton, who was the leader of the Illinois Black Panther Party in 1968. That's the basis of the movie. I'm either ratting this guy out probably to his death, or I'm saying no to the FBI and probably spending the rest of my life in jail. So there's no positive way, really, that he comes out of this, unless, of course, you consider the death of Fred Hampton being a positive result, which I guess the FBI did. Yeah. So it's two, again, really, really different performances, but for Kaluuya, like you mentioned, he gets these powerful soliloquies and these moments where his performance has to believably control a crowd, like Fred Hampton's performances successfully controlled those crowds. And I found that every time he was faced with one of these moments, he absolutely knocked it out of the park. So that's why I had to give him the slightest bump up. I mean, he would have been the one that, if it was me with a vote in the Academy, which I don't have yet, but both of us should have, he would have been the one that I would have put forward and been like, well, you have to give somebody lead actor.
Yeah,
and I think for me it would have been him, but again, it's so very difficult in the context of the movie, really, to make that decision. But for me, Daniel Kaluuya was number 3.
Yeah, his character, well, it's not really a character, it's based on a real person, but his role was built to get the glory. So I could understand giving it to him over, because Stanfield's is a little more under the surface, quiet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doesn't call attention to itself as much, so I would understand. If I didn't cheap out a little bit, I probably would have done the same thing as you and put him in 3. Okay, so for my number 3, I'm going to have to read it off, because I'm breaking the awards again and picking an ensemble. I think I do this every year.
I'm pretty
at
sure
least once now.
You've done it every year since Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah, I do it every year, so here it is this time.
Okay.
So it's Kingsley Ben-Adir, Eli Goree, Aldous Hodge, and Leslie Odom Jr. in One Night in Miami. Kingsley plays Malcolm X, Eli plays Cassius Clay, Aldous plays Jim Brown, and Leslie plays Sam Cooke. You can't really put it at the feet of one, at the feet of one person, because they are so good together. I'd probably pick Benedict as Malcolm X if I had to pick one, but they were so good together and their chemistry was so natural that it felt as if I was not watching a movie at times, just like four dudes in a hotel or wherever, just talking.
Yeah.
And part of that's the script, of course. But they fit their characters so well that I couldn't pick. Because the movie doesn't work without all four of them, obviously. Not just from a plot standpoint, but just the actors were so good together.
My number 2 best actor of 2021 is Joaquin Phoenix for his performance in Come On, Come On. So he plays and there are a number of movies that I saw this year based around journalism. But he plays a journalist who is basically traveling the country interviewing kids and talking to kids about, like, kind of, what do you think about the world right now? Like, what do you think about the future? What do you think about this? So he's like building like a narrative almost about the youth of America and how they feel about the future and what have you. And in this, he also sort of rekindles his relationship with his sister. He's a bit of an absentee uncle, so he rekindles his relationship with his nephew. And the way that he weaves, like, joy and sadness and regret over the way that him and his sister's relationship fell apart and the way he doesn't really have a relationship with his nephew and then how he rebuilds that relationship with his nephew. I just watched this movie last night, so it's still very fresh in my mind. And Joaquin Phoenix is such a master. Like, he's just so fantastic in roles like this that are very focused on people and interrelationships and those aspects in a film. Joaquin is brilliant, and that is exactly what he was in Come On, Come On. Not a movie that got a ton of radar from a lot of people this year, but he was the second best performance for me in 2021.
That's an A24 movie.
Oh, yes, it is. There you go.
Yeah, I think Phoenix might be like Justin Tyler Movie Awards darling, because he gets mentioned most years by one of us at least. So I guess we love you, Joaquin Phoenix.
There you go. You can feel confident that at some point you're probably going to go in the Hall of Fame.
That's
no
true.
Spoilers, but at some point.
Okay, my number 2 is Koji Yakusho in Under the Open Sky.
Ooh, okay.
A foreign movie about an ex-Yakuza struggling with his past, trying to move on from his past, still has that personality of being a violent criminal that he wrestles with. And this guy, just an understated performance, dealing with that anger when he does break down into full-blown sadness or tragedy. It feels earned in part because of the script, but in part because he's so good. And he just, when you're able to juggle two kind of things that are so different, like the angry criminal, he's trying to reform, but still, and then like somebody that, but then you also need to gain sympathy for this guy, right? He just does so, like when he commits an act that is atrocious, you forgive him in part because the performance is so believable. And I know this guy ain't going to get a ton of awards or recognition, but he deserves it because he put in that solid work this year. So
Has he been in anything else?
Probably, but I don't remember.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, yeah, he definitely has.
My number 1 best actor of 2021, and I have to give this on body of work. This one goes to Timothée Chalamet. So obviously Timothée Chalamet had one of these central performances in Dune, which was one of my most anticipated movies coming into this year. He's also one of the standout performances in The French Dispatch. So he's part of the kind of middle story in The French Dispatch as the leader of a student rebellion, basically, who's writing his Karl Marx-esque manifesto. And he gets to play alongside Frances McDormand the whole time. And whenever you get a chance to play off of Frances McDormand, it's going to make you way better, because that's just what Frances McDormand does. So it was that. He was also in Don't Look Up. as again a sort of a smaller part in Don't Look Up. But on body of work, I had to give it to Timothée Chalamet this year. If it was just Dune, he wouldn't have gotten there. He probably would have been in the honorable mentions. Yeah. But then when he was, again, one of the standout performers in a movie that's got a lot of standout performances in The French Dispatch, I had to give it to Timothée Chalamet in total as my number one this year.
I have not been as receptive to him as you have been in the awards. Like, I respect him, and I know the guy, I mean, he already has made a great career, but I know he's going to go on and have an amazing career. I know this. Totally. And I like him, but I don't know. Oh, I might have given him something for Beautiful Boy. I can't remember.
I feel like you might have given him at least like an honorable for Beautiful. I think he might have been my number one or number two that year for Beautiful Boy.
This is the thing. I do quite enjoy the guy, but I got to tell you something.
All right.
Don't Look Up was like his performance was awesome because he was playing so against type.
Yeah.
Like, he's like this serious actor, but he just plays this like skateboarder, and it was. It was so fun watching him play that. Like, I wish that character was in the movie more. Because I gotta be honest, he was the best part of the movie. Like, I loved that guy in that part. Because, I don't know, you just, like, he plays, like, roles in Call Me By Your Name and Dune, and it's, like, real serious actor stuff. Doing what he needs to do to get well known and already being called, like, one of the best actors of his generation and stuff. But then you just see him show up as this, like, skateboarder dude.
Right.
Talking about how, can I be vulnerable for a second? And like, just, it's, because he's a young 20 himself, I think, right?
He's in his 20s, I think.
So it's nice seeing him actually play somebody that's actually kind of, like, comes across as quite young.
Yeah.
So I actually, I mean, he's not on my list, but I like him a lot in Don't Look Up, especially. That movie could have existed without him.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that could have been in that role. I think he's very good in that role. Yeah, I think he fits the character very well, but he's not the only, like, he's not Elijah Wood playing Frodo. Yeah. Like, he's not that. It's like, I can't imagine anybody else playing Frodo Baggins anymore.
So you picked a really serious actor, so now I'm going to pick an even more serious actor. My number one is Nicolas Cage! Yeah! Yes! Giving it to him, number one. Nicolas Cage, mostly for Pig, however, a body of work thing too, because he was in Willy's Wonderland and Prisoners of the Ghostland. So here's the thing. He did two disparate things. In Prisoners and Willy's Wonderland, he's just like a presence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In Willy's Wonderland, he actually doesn't say much of anything. In Prisoners, he does say some more, but he's just a presence. And I feel like that's important, because he shows up on screen and he doesn't even have to say anything, but he's got this, like, real actor presence and plays, like, kind of slightly crazy roles and action and badass roles really well. Yeah. So he does that. Those two movies wouldn't have been enough to get him at the top. I don't think. It helps. But in Pig, it's like serious actor stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he puts in that dramatic role. He has those breakdowns. He still has that Nicolas Cage presence. He reminds people that, people would clown on him for years, even though his filmography isn't actually as bad as people think, because he would still sprinkle in good movies most years, not every year. But it reminds people that, this guy can actually really, really act. And I'm going to say, like, I haven't seen all his movies by any means, but it might be a career best for him. It may be. So, an actor that managed to do two things really well, and really Timothée Chalamet did, different type of roles too to help, but Nicolas Cage is better.
Didn't he also have one this year, the Unbearable Weight of Remarkable Genius or something like that, where he's basically just playing himself?
What? I didn't know that existed.
Was that maybe that's something that's coming out early next year? I'm not sure.
Nicolas Cage 2 years in a row.
Why did I say it?
I gotta remember that. But no, like, I gave him not the top spot, but I gave him in the top 3 one year. But now he can finally ascend to the throne that he was meant to be on. But like, all kidding aside, Pig would have got him number 1 anyway.
Oh, there you go.
He didn't need the other stuff. It just helped.
It just helped. Fair enough.
Nicolas Cage, number 1. I'm so happy about that. I forgot that I gave him number 1.
And then look and go, yes.
Yeah, I get to talk like... This is what I do. All day.
When you're somebody like me that puts everything in the parlance of professional wrestling, This is long-term storytelling. This is long-term booking. He was in the middle of the card, kind of disappeared for a little bit, and then ascended to the World Heavyweight Championship.
And it feels so good. Everything else was bad about 2021, but not this.
There you have it, folks. Nicolas Cage and Timothée Chalamet, our #1 best actors of 2021. Two very different choices. But that's what, you know what? That's what to love about the movie awards. You never know what you are going to get when it comes to the two of us giving out awards. That concludes our best actors of 2021. And just around the corner is going to be the actresses. It is the Women's Time to Shine Best Actresses of 2021 coming up next.
Thank you.